Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to participants in today's seminar. I just want by a show of virtual hand, may you please just indicate that you can hear me well and you can also see this video that I've shared with you.
Yes, we can.
All right. No, thank you, Prof. So let me greet you once again. Colleagues, I think the session for today, when I was trying to just have a glimpse on the topic, trying to think what kind of a conversation are we going to have today with the two facilitators. I noticed that this topic is important since the issue of science, technology, and engineering actually plays a critical role in driving sustainable development, economic growth. I think it affects all spheres of our life, be it from an economic perspective or just the way of life itself. We also see that, but in many developing countries, we have an issue or a challenge of limited access to quality STEM education. So which actually perpetuate, other social ills that we have, the issues of poverty, marginalization, especially of youth, girls, and so on. So I'm really, it is an honor for me to be taking part in this seminar, and I'm happy that you have also took your time to join us for this session, and I want to thank all the participants for that. But most importantly, I want to thank the facilitators who have agreed to facilitate this seminar for today. When I was looking at the profile of one of the facilitator, and then I looked at the profile of the second facilitator as well, I actually just thought that, but they don't need even to be here talking to us, right? Remember, a need and a want. When you approach it from an economic perspective, there's a difference between the two. They don't need to be talking to us, but they are here talking to us. So you hear when I read their bios in your hearing that, maybe we can share this consensus on that. Really, it is a pleasure and an honor for us to be listening to them and for them to be talking to us. Okay, but before I introduce the facilitators, let me just go over some housekeeping rules and important information. The first thing is that if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to raise your virtual hand if you'd like to speak, or you can type your question in the chat box. Then I will bring that to the attention of the facilitators. But also, that is the preference of the facilitators as well. They will express when they begin the presentation whether they want the session to be engaging, or where you can ask questions at any time, or you can reserve your questions for the question and answer segment at the end of the session. Then also, the session is recorded and the presentation slides will be requested from the presenters. Both the recording and the slides will be uploaded to our Moodle communities by the end of the week. So we just have to verify the content for suitability, or for us to upload it onto the platform according to the university policy. Then I'll also post a feedback survey during the session on the chat section. I am asking that you, fill that out for us to be able to gain insight into how useful this seminar was, and also for our future preparations, as well as to provide some feedback to the facilitators as well. And by filling out the survey, this ensures that you receive a certificate of attendance for this seminar. I would like to remind you again that we launched the Research Capacity Development Management System last month. That was on the 14th of March. And we are gradually migrating to this new system. So this webinar-based kind of registrations, we are going to forego that. Then everything will be done on the RCD MS system. So this is a system that we are now using to streamline, our events and offerings as the RCD, and also your research journey as well. So on the RC DMS, you can register for workshops, the research writing consultations, and stay updated of our events and services all in one place. So we actually label it as a one-stop access for all our events and services. And for you to register to utilize the system, you can access it through your link under the services tab or by visiting the www.rcdms.uj.ac.za. Right now, allow me to introduce our facilitators for today, Prof. Catherine Gila and Prof. Lydia Mavuru. Okay, allow me to read the bio of Prof. Gila first in your hearing. So Prof. Gila is a visiting professor of analytical environmental chemistry at the University of Johannesburg, specializing in water quality monitoring and nanotechnology-based treatment methods. She serves as an executive director of the African Foundation for Women, Youth in Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation, ESTI, which supports mentorship and capacity building in STEM. Prof. Ngila holds leadership roles with international bodies such as the International Organization for Chemical Sciences in Development, IOCD, focusing on science for sustainable development and gender equity in STEM. She is a fellow of the World Academy of Science, TWAS, the African Academy of Sciences, AAS, and the Academy of Science of South Africa, ASSAF. She has received several prestigious awards, including the L'Oreal UNESCO Women in Science Award, the African Union Kwame Nkrumah Award, and the South Africa Women in Science Award. With over 600 publications and extensive postgraduate supervision, she continues to contribute significantly to research, education, and science policy across Africa. That is a very rich biography there. Let me read the bio of Prof. Lydia Mavuru, also in your hearing. Prof. Mavuru is an associate professor and head of the Department of Mathematics, Science and Technology Education at the University of Johannesburg. She holds a PhD in science education from the UJ, a Master of Science in Biology Education from the University of Zimbabwe, where she received book prizes in 2003 and 2004, and several other qualifications in science and education from the University of Zimbabwe. With a strong background in in-service science teacher development, Prof. Mavuru's teaching and research are grounded in the belief that learners' socio-cultural contexts significantly influence the accessibility and relevance of scientific concepts. She supervises master's and PhD students in science education with research interests that include socio-cultural and gender-responsive pedagogies in science classrooms, advocating for inclusive and meaningful science teaching in diverse learning environments. So I think these are two very rich, biographies of women who have done a lot, in terms of academics and the perpetuation of science. I'm delighted to hand over to Prof. Ngila and Prof. Mavuru, who will be leading us through the seminar. Prof. Ngila and Prof. Mavuru, we appreciate your time and your expertise, and also we look forward to your valuable insights, during the course of this seminar. And I hand over to you, to the two professors to lead us from here henceforth. I'll stop sharing my slides, and you can share your slides. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair, for this session. I'm trying to now get to sharing my presentation. Let's see. In case of a challenge, I'm not very familiar with Teams. But give me.
I can assist if you have any challenge. I can assist to lead you.
Yes, I'm trying to share.
Okay.
So I go to, in my sharing, there is a screen, and then there is a presentation mode, and then there is Windows. So I'm trying to see. Yeah. Okay.
If you choose the screen, then everything that pops on the screen will be able to see it. But if you choose the window, if you have already opened your slideshow, you can choose window, then you go and click on the slideshow.
Okay. All right. So let's do that. So let's do that. See whether that comes up. You let me know when you have seen the slides.
Okay. We see the slides, but they are not yet in presenter mode.
Oh, okay. All right. So at least that one you have seen.
Yes.
So let's do this. And let's move to presentation mode. Sorry to take too much of your time.
No problem, Prof.
Yes, we are now in the presentation mode.
Then you can go now on share. Then you on the Windows share window. Then you choose this window for present.
So we go back to the share window.
Yes. If there's sound that you want to play, then you will say share with sound. There's an icon that you click, but if there's no sound, then you just proceed without clicking it.
So in that particular case, right now, you can see the slides and we can proceed.
Yes, we can proceed. So you can proceed with sharing.
Okay. So am I sharing right now?
Yeah, now we can see you are sharing. Yes, it's true.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
If I'm sharing, then I think we can now proceed. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you so much for the invitation. I really do appreciate University of Johannesburg, as always. As you indicated, I'm still a visiting professor in the Chemical Sciences Department. And also, I do appreciate the school, postgraduate school. In fact, as a matter of fact, last, I think around November, December, I visited the school, and I had a very productive chat with the Professor Penny Govender, and I've been communicating with Sandri and the rest of the team. So my appreciation to the research capacity development team. And so we'll be looking at a whole range of things, how to promote STEM, basically STEM education, because we know that is now science, and it is science that is going to inform development, and particularly with a focus on developing countries. And so just for the contract purposes, I've already indicated the number of things that I do, and I'm grateful that at least you shared the background with the rest of the audience. So in my presentation, what I want to do is to basically introduce what I do, which is the African Foundation for Women and Youth, just basically mentorship there. And also highlight on some of the issues that UNESCO, particularly a program called Closing the Gender Gap, and also highlight sustainable development goals, looking at the goal for education, quality education, which is goal number 4. Number 5 is gender equality, and number 10 is eliminating all forms of inequalities. And just to basically highlight some of the agenda, the UN Agenda 2030, and also the African Union Agenda 2063, some of the highlights. What is happening in Africa in terms of the status of research, and also some of the STI, science, technology, and innovation issues, and basically investment, particularly looking at the gross domestic product investment in research, percentage that is, and some of the skills that we need to be looking out for, that is the future of work in terms of skills development, and now very important STEM education. So this is the backbone. This is the backbone of if we want to do development going forward. Obviously, STEM doesn't work in isolation, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, doesn't work in isolation. It works with the rest of the other social sciences and all that, because whom are we doing STEM for? We are doing STEM for the society. And society, we have to look at humanities. We have to look at what is happening in terms of our connectivities. And then going forward, how do we strengthen STEM education in Africa? Particularly looking at some of the issues that are really affecting Africa, such as the curriculum, teacher training, methods of teaching, infrastructure. We don't have funding, need for partnerships, and then, of course, the role of education in research and development as we go towards some of the other points that I will be sharing. So in terms of what I do, I ran a foundation. When I left University of Johannesburg in 2017, I was the head of chemical sciences. At that time, we were calling it applied chemistry, but now it's chemical sciences at the Dwarrenfontein campus. And when I left, I came back to Nairobi, Kenya, and did a number of things, including working for the African Academy of Sciences. And right now, I would say that I decided to give back to the community, not just in Kenya, but the wider community in terms of engagement in mentorship and so forth and so on, involved in quite a number of STI, issues. So this foundation is in Kenya, registered last year, that was 2022 in December. And the main focus is just to provide support for women and youth by exposing them to various things, but most important through mentorship. And so in terms of specifics, we do mentorship, capacity building, which is mentorship. Capacity building is a bigger word. I mean, it covers almost everything. I'm very passionate about recognizing excellence and also showcasing what women are doing, because that is the only way we use the women as role models so that they can be able to give guidance and provide mentorship to the youth. Strategic partnerships. I think UJ is my strategic partnership. I must say. And obviously, we cannot do those things without resources. So some of the challenges that are facing women in the world, I just want to highlight globally. If you look at the statistics, women only form researchers, scientists, only 30% or less. It depends on which, because that is just an average. So in Africa, probably the numbers are more or less there, but maybe in other countries it is higher, other countries are lower. So the higher the position, the more you find a decline of women. If we start with bachelors, I think we have so many young girls, young women who are doing bachelor's and master's degree. As you go towards PhD, that is doctorate, the numbers start going down. Lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, and all that, those numbers are dwindling. As you go to full professor, the numbers are even less. You go to CEOs, that is CEOs of different organizations, that is chief executive officers, the numbers still get less. So basically, we have to encourage, because if women form 50% of the population, obviously, if you leave 50% of the population, then where are we going as a globe? So those are some of the issues that we have to look at. So according to UNESCO Institute of Statistics, female scientists, it varies from about 23% in South Asia, but more important, if I look at in Africa, we are looking at about 32%, of the global population, that is. And so there are gender gaps, of course, if you look at other places, areas like in Central Asia, the numbers are higher. Europe is also high, about 52%. So gender gaps, they differ with fields. If you look at engineering and physics, the numbers are less. If you go to biology and chemistry, the numbers are higher. If you go to social sciences, humanities, the numbers are higher. So STEM is where there is a serious issue, and these are some of the things that we have to continue to engage in. In fact, currently, UNESCO is worried about artificial intelligence because, globally, we only have 22% of women professionals in ICT and artificial intelligence related. So, but then when we look at the future of work, the skills that will be required, AI is going to be very, very important as we talk about, as we move along for the Industrial Revolution, going towards the fifth Industrial Revolution. So these are things that we cannot walk away from. And so talking about the UNESCO, I belong to a team of, they call them international experts who advise on gender and women in science. And so they launched a program in February last year during the International Women Day. Women and girls in science. And so identified 3 areas or 3 pillars that they need to address, which is one of them being dismantling the gender stereotypes and biases in science, and also creating pathways, or rather just helping girls to see they can be able to navigate in different ways, pathways for girls in science, whatever it is that they want to do in terms of innovative educational strategies, opening educational options, safe working environment for women also, because if you realize that women who work in STEM fields, sometimes they get to be very limited, particularly because the critical numbers of women are very few. So the few are there, they don't probably feel very comfortable working in a big group of men, and very few of them are in that particular area. So what must we do now to encourage and also to improve the numbers? So UNESCO, again, copying from citing UNESCO, some of the recommendations that they made is to include have stories, images of women scientists doing in textbooks. That is going to tell both girls and boys that, there's not much difference between men and women. Any of us can be able to manage, we can navigate in different fields, particularly in STEM. Increasing the presence of female scientists in the media, newspapers, and I am always very proud of what South Africa really does. I mean, if the rest of the African continent can copy what South Africa does, it is really, really important to be able to showcase women who are doing big things and who are excelling their various fields, whether it is through radios, television. When I was in Joburg at University of Johannesburg, I used to visit SABC. Whenever there was something, I would go and have chats about whatever it is that we were doing at the time, whether it is an award that you have managed to get, they invite you and you go and talk about. That was really good. So, and I think that's what I'm trying to say, that the rest of African countries, if we can do that, and generally globally, I think we'll make a mark. So organizing and providing related funding, for outreach activities involving women and girls, very important. Ensure equitable representation of women and men as committee members. We are not saying that just have women. We are simply saying just to have both of them, have equal access to all of them, facilitating opportunities for women, female scientists, and so forth and so on. What about the pathways for girls in science? Well, introducing science into curriculum from early age, that is so important, because then as the girl grows up and the boy grows up, they all are engaging with that. The teachers also, teaching methodologies. I think sometimes it's always a problem that teachers discourage. And not always, but in some cases. If you're asking me why did I become a professor of chemistry, I'll tell you it's because of my teacher. I mean, the way he taught and he encouraged us, so I felt comfortable to really navigate in this particular field. So removing gender bias, stereotypes from teaching, the way we teach materials, I think that is now getting less. Where in a class of boys and girls, the teacher will always going to pick John, James, Victor. What about Mary, Margaret? Why don't you call out them, Or if Mary makes a mistake, you stupid, sit down. I mean, I think those practices are archaic, so they are probably long gone, and we need to encourage that positive step towards that. Parents also, the parents must also be, because sometimes parents will say, no, you can't do science. No, you just do history. Not that history, there's nothing wrong with that. If I'm good in history, I'll do history. If I'm good in chemistry, let me be encouraged to do chemistry. That's what I'm trying to say. In other words, let's balance. Prioritize interaction, interdisciplinary, allocating resources, investing, particularly in teacher training, because the teacher training, these are the people who are teaching us, our kids, our students. So we need also to make sure that we upgrade their skills. Gender transformative counseling and guidance, exposure, particularly career guidance is so important. Sometimes when I visit schools, And I go to girls' schools and I ask you, so what do you want to be? I think it is always typical. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a doctor. But the minute you discuss with them and show them, there are so many careers that you can be able to do, then they open their minds. So career guidance is really, really important. What about safe working environment for women? I remember once when I was working for a company, engineering company, I found very few women were there. And one particular lady who was very good in electrical engineering. She moved out of engineering. She moved to environment. I said, but why did you change? You are the only engineer, electrical engineer. She said, because there aren't so many women around. And so I feel very lonely. So if we can have critical mass in these particular fields and also support women by creating safe working environment, that will really go a long way. Advocacy in scientific workplace, it involves things like actively supporting and championing the rights and opportunities for the underrepresented, so that we're talking about eliminating inequalities. So in a nutshell, mentorship is so important. Workplace advocacy is so important. Challenges, workplace biases and stereotypes that must really be discouraged. Providing networks, opportunities, promoting flexibility. If we have got a young mother, then obviously we have to realize that she has to balance being a mother, being the wife, being a professor, being a student. So that I think that is also important, supporting that work balance experience. So coming now to the STEM education, we started talking about STEM, but now let's just look at some of the ideas that come out about STEM education. And it's understood as an education that promotes integration and development of scientific and technical subjects in a single interdisciplinary framework. Looking at the teaching methodologies and also basically, teaching and learning processes through, the science and technology and, basically the STEM areas. And so the objective of STEM education, particularly in terms of the approach to teaching methodologies or didactic approach, is to provide people with the competencies for experiential learning by developing critical thinking, things like problem solving and collaboration. So if I look at the methodologies of how I did mathematics, chemistry, physics, biology, and all that, looking back and looking today, some of the opportunities that we have got, hands-on experience. If we're talking about, acid-based titration, I'm a chemist. Acid-based titration, I see practically what is happening. You show me color changes. At the time, I just had to cram. I had to cram base and acid. You combine, you get a neutral solution, but I don't go beyond that. But today we have got that opportunity of exposing practically and showing examples of some of the topics that we are teaching. So STEM education is based on practical approach that is different from theoretical rote learning and reproducing what you learn so that you can pass the exams. Skills, competence-based is also important. Kenya has introduced a system called competence-based education, which basically they are simply saying that the curriculum should be made in such a way that there is a lot of practical aspects and showing students, practically what the subjects that they are relating the subjects that they are learning with, or the curriculum they are learning with reality, what is happening on the ground, give with examples. So that is partly also trying to promote STEM education. Because it is the foundation for many things. STEM is a foundation for many things, but STEM doesn't work in isolation, like I said before. It has to be combined with other topics. But if we have to come up with COVID-19 vaccine, then definitely biology, chemistry, physics, and many other areas will have to be there, including IT. So it's a combination of so many things. So STEM education can include a range of disciplines, even including robotics. What is the work of robot? Because I want to see it performing something, coding. I'm glad some of the mentorship programs that we partner with ICT companies. And so they train girls on how to program, coding, and things like that. So web development, so that they engage what is happening in reality. So these are a combination of various science fields, environmental, marine, chemical, earth, and all that. I think all that holistically put together is quality and STEM education. So kids, of course, can be encouraged and also be challenged to utilize their creativity, logic, and in others engage with the students, and so that it becomes a student-centered learning rather than teacher. The teacher is giving all the information, and students, their work is simply to absorb it. It has to be in some engagement going on. So when you talk about the comprehensive STEM education, it is a system that encompasses various key components to prepare students for productive activities, industry development, things like, competencies in natural sciences, like we said before, tools that we can be able to use, like construction kits, and this is now engaging practically how, students are learning, integration of a comprehensive education platform that is based on integration of teaching and learning architect, which allows sharing of academic resources, practicals, and so forth and so on, theoretical and methodological foundations of STEM, emphasizing harmonization of psychological spheres and the development of competence levels continuously, so that we can be able to engage the learner and analyzing problems and solving problems. So how can we then change STEM education? Well, positive steps to investing in STEM in STEM infrastructure is also important. Also in teacher training, very important. Universities should be able to partner, and I'm happy. We used to host quite a number of high school students at University of Johannesburg in chemistry. They come from different schools. Those who do not have laboratories, at least they come and see what is happening. But also, most important, we also used to have micro kits, chemistry micro kits, where we are teaching small scale without necessarily. If, for example, school doesn't have a budget for equipment, they can also use the micro-scale chemical or science kits. So that is also important. So STEM is certainly a stepping, into a limelight, but teachers and students also need to be involved. And it is also important. If STEM is going to be key to the future career success, for a whole generation of children and next generation, then we have to think about a whole lot of things that we must do, including partnerships, private, public partnerships, government, parastatals, and so forth and so on. So I like to show these examples. Just I downloaded this one. I looked at a typical laboratory in some of, economically lower, regions. And I looked at what is on the left-hand side. These children are just copying notes. And this is what I went through. I copied notes without necessarily going to the laboratory to see what is happening. But if you compare with what is on the right-hand side, which is a module laboratory, and the child who is going through these laboratories, they have got, hands-on experience, they are exposed, they do practical skills and so forth. So what we're trying to say is that our governments should be able to invest in infrastructure, in teacher training, in so many other things that are going to promote our STEM education. Digital divide is another challenge that we have. That is where we have got inequalities in access. And we saw during COVID-19, when we started teaching online, some of the schools did not have facilities, or children didn't have facilities for them to attend online lectures and all that. And now the problem is, and this is really becoming, digital technologies is the way to go. I mean, artificial intelligence is the way to go. And it is there already, it is with us. So the question is, if there's going to be a divide, then we are still going to have a whole lot of community left behind that do not have access to what is happening in modern, including modern teaching methods. So the digital revolution has brought, about significant changes in various aspects of our lives, including education. And therefore, we have to also embrace some of this. And the impact we have, where we have got access and lack of access, that it becomes really a serious problem. So in a broader sense, some of the challenges of teaching STEM in Africa. Sometimes when I go to give mentorship or rather invited to different universities to go and give talks about whatever topics it is, whether it's climate or whatever, some of the things I listen is that, but why are we doing STEM subjects when we know we cannot get jobs? We are graduating, but we are not getting jobs. So job success is one of the serious problems. A shortage of formal employment, but maybe then in that particular case, we have to change our teaching methods. We have to change our approach, the way we teach, because then that is going to empower, our students so that they can be more or less self-employed. You can be able to create opportunities and all that. So having those ideas in mind and coming up with a curriculum that can be able to empower students, that is really very, very important. So relevant skills need to be, attractive, accessible to all pupils, overcoming systematic challenges to good quality scientific education, and many others, it is very, very important. Class sizes. The larger the class, the lower, the less interaction between the teacher and the students. So that becomes a problem. So smaller classes are good. Having resources, science, technology, resources that we need, very, very important. Like I said before, infrastructure. We have to do away with outdated curriculum and change the curriculum so that we can be able to look at what is happening. Learner-centered pedagogy, for example, or rather teaching methodologies. Like I said, overcoming classes, overcoming classroom challenges that usually students do face in sub-Saharan Africa. A language of instruction is also important. If some of the children do not understand and probably are not very competent in the language that we are using, you have to think of different ways in which you can still communicate that information. In terms of the way we assess, formative assessment, the exams that we are giving, are we just giving exams for rote learning, so forth and so on? Attitudes and values also, I think we have to incorporate and encourage positive attitudes towards that. Gender inequality is also another issue that we talked about. So if you look at generally, we simply say that we have to look at the curriculum, the STEM curriculum. We also have to worry about the teacher training, whether they are really updated, with modern ways of teaching. The teaching methodologies, the infrastructure. We showed the laboratories. Some of the schools do not have laboratories. Funding, government has to prioritize in terms of funding, public-private partnership, so that we can be able. So in a way, and that just to highlight some of the points that I've just indicated there, for us to transform STEM education. We have said curriculum is there, teaching methodologies, assessment methodologies, supporting in terms of, enhancing access to STEM education through mentorship, role models, financial scholarships, providing scholarship supporting systems, addressing systematic barriers that are there, eliminating biases, stereotypes, like we said, and also collaboration and partnership among, could be institutions, it could be government, departments, it could be companies, industry, so forth and so on. Just to highlight basically in terms of the United Nations development goals, because at the end of the day, our sustainable development goals is all about improving health and education, reducing inequality, spurring economic growth, tackling climate change and many other challenges that we have, preserving oceans and forests. So if, in a nutshell, these are the highlights of the Sustainable Development Goals, and these are the things that they touch on our lives. And coming back now to basically looking at the whole range of the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 of them, you can see that poverty is number one. Hunger, food security is important. Good health is important. Education is very, very important. Gender equality is there, and many others. There's a reason why I highlighted, because I belong to the United Nations, what we call the 10-member group. And the 10-member group is just people drawn from different parts of the world. And I represent Africa. And so we are trying to monitor what is happening in terms of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. As we move towards 2030, we are now left with about 5 years. And the question is, are we going to manage to attain the 16 Sustainable Development Goals? Because the 17 is just basically partnerships, so to enable us to and all that. So what I have in blue, or what you would want to call it green, light green, is what we focused on last year, because every year there are 2 meetings that take place in New York. We have got a meeting in May. So next week we have got a meeting which is looking at policies and what are the case studies, how far are we gone with Sustainable Development Goals. So last year, 2024, we focused on goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 13, that is climate action. Number 16 is peace and justice in institutions. Basically, how do we manage our institutions? Partnerships, 17. Now, this year, 2025, we are looking at goal number 3, number 5, number 8, number 14, and again, number 17, because 17 is always there, because we need partnership for anything that we want to do. So we are looking at good health, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, what is happening in marine environment, life underwater, that is basically, and then also the partnerships. Now, so talking about that, so the group that I belong to supports what we call the UN Interagency Team, Task Team. And this is all to bringing together multi-stakeholders, whether they are scientists, different groups of people, NGOs, government institutions. They all come together to discuss in their environment, in their institutions, in their countries, how far have they gone in terms of towards attaining the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And so we call that group the 10 representatives, 10-member representatives. And so I sit in that group to sort of representing Africa. So I collect information from different institutions. Mainly, I look at what is happening in African Union, particularly the African Union Development Agency, that is AUDA-NEPAD, because they collect basically what progress and case studies, what we happening with AI and different areas of sustainable development. Because we also have the multi-stakeholder forum for Africa, which it took place, I think, about 2 weeks ago, which was took place in Uganda. So again, this is information we collect, and that information is all put together and is presented at the May and July fora. The main fora is for scientists coming together and many different groups. And then the July one is the ministers. They come together from different countries. The many countries that belong and come together as United Nations. And so my last year's presentation was about science policy, looking at solutions to accelerate implementation of SDGs in Africa, case studies in Africa. So that was my presentation this year. I think I'm presenting on gender, some of the case studies and how some of the access and challenges that we have encountered in Africa, but also looking at some of the partnerships. I was also studying what is the role of organizations such as the African Academy of Sciences, Association of African Universities, looking at the free common trade area, AUDA-NEPAD, African CDC. What is the role of all these institutions in terms of achieving sustainable development goals? So that will be my paper this year in New York next week. So talking about the African Union agenda, basically it also mirrors what is happening with the UN, because UN is all of us, and then now we carve our strengths, what our strengths in Africa and what our challenges, what are we trying to address using sustainable development, using science, technology, and innovation. And so Africa, we have got the Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa. 2024 has just ended, and now we have started. The 2024 strategy started 2015 to 2024. Now we have got 2025 to 2034. And so we are looking at some of the issues, particularly looking at what just the strategy that we just finished as we move now to the new strategies is to build and upgrade research institutions, infrastructures, enhancing professional and technical competencies, promoting entrepreneurship and innovation. As a recent review in 2023 noted that Africa still has quite a number of gaps. But one also, something very positive is it has shown that in terms of publication, scientific publication, we have moved, starting from 2015, we have actually increased our publication output by 135%, which is big. But then there's also another problem that quite a number of those publications, we are not the first authors. Africans are not the first authors. They are collaborating with maybe Oxford, maybe New York, and so forth and so on. If you are not the first author, so that you are not building capacity in your laboratory or capacity in your research group, because it is you as an individual. But if maybe through the collaboration you are transferring those skills to your research groups, then yeah, that is good. And so anyway, it is good. It is a good positive achievement for Africa. Of course, challenges that we are faced with: climate change, we've said, food security. Climate change is goal number 13. Food security is goal number 2. Poverty is number 1. High burden of disease or health is number 3. So again, these are the SDGs that we are looking at. So, but also important, STEM for economic growth and sustainable development. We need STEM, like I said before, without belaboring that. But one thing to note again is that from statistics, we see that 42% of the world's youth, they live in Africa. And 75% of that number is less than 35 years. So that means that we have got really rich resources that can be exploited. And STEM is one way, making sure that we really have, our STEM education is really at a very high level, so that we can be able to address some of the global challenges, and particularly African challenges that are affecting. And I think we have looked at UN 2030 and also the SDGs. Now, very discouraging that globally, the average research allocation, that is research and development allocation to gross development domestic product, that is GDP, in Africa, we are less than 0.5%, but globally, the average is about 2.2. What am I talking about? This is the money we are allocating to research and development. So for our total GDP in Africa, we are only spending less than 0.5%, whereas the globe, they are investing about 2.2 on average. That is, some countries are investing more than that, obviously. That is why it is an average. We are only investing about, in Africa, it's about 0.5%, globally 2.2%. But the African Union agreed, the countries in African Union agreed that let's spend about 1% of our GDP in R&D. And so, which translates to about, in Africa, about 100 researchers per 1 million people. So a population of 1 million people, only 100 researchers, which is really so far much low compared to the global average of about 1,100. So some of the things that we need to do: investment in R&D, very important, supporting cutting-edge basic research, empowering our African researchers, also important. Some of the things that we have to look into: world-class research innovation. I think we have to think about that. Prudent financial management, individual professional development, networking, leadership in research and development, mentorship we have talked about, strong community engagement, so important, in terms of grant management, financial management. So I highlighted on the AUDA-NEPA, that is African Union Development Agency, which is the agency that actually implements the African agenda, particularly for more important for science, but many other things. So some of the areas that they identified in their report of 2023 was inadequate coordination of STI initiatives and breakthroughs. Access to finance was also highlighted. Weak intellectual property rights enforcement. We are not enforcing. We come up with good ideas, innovations, products, but we are not. Intellectual property is lacking. Digital inequality is another issue. Data insufficiency, limited gender inclusivity, and networking. That is partnership. So I think I talked about the STISM, that is Science, Technology, Innovation Strategy for Africa 2024. Currently now for this next strategy that we are looking at is agriculture. We are prioritizing agriculture, health, ICT, energy, and environmental, including climate change, biodiversity, and many others. In a nutshell, just looked at some of the data of some of the countries. Sometimes some of the countries I couldn't get data, and also the data is not updated. So I think some of the recent one is about 2023. Tunisia, 2023. That is now what we call the global expenditure on research and development of a percentage of the GDP. And so South Africa, I'm sure we are keen to look at South Africa spending good percentage. The gross expenditure on research and development in South Africa, about 0.62, but that was 2022. So probably now the number has gone higher. If I checked, I think it is probably far much higher than 0.2. I am afraid in Kenya, I saw in 2022 was 0.41. But when I looked at the internet, I saw now Kenya has moved to 0.81. So if Kenya has moved to 0.81, South Africa is also maybe going towards 1. Rwanda is also doing very well. Mainly the Northern African countries, Algeria, Egypt, their numbers are usually very higher than others. So many others. So that is in terms of the development. So according to United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, a report 2016, that is how they came to define the 1% target for African Union or African countries. But most important is that a report notices or highlights that increased research and development spending is seen as a key to achieve self-reliance, economic diversification, employment, wealth creation, and all that. So the more we spend on R&D, then our GDP will go up. That is what the report. So some of the future of work, and I know time is not very on my side, Mr. Chair, future work skills that we require going forward: complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management. How do you engage? Can you, what we call being able to understand? I'm trying to get the terminology. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, very, very important. If you engage in a group of people, you need to be able to understand their thinking and where they are going, and so you promote what is basically touching and what people are really more particularly interested in. Judgment in decision making, service oriented. Service so important. Ability to be able to meet the customer needs. So we have to think about all these things. As we think about STEM, we also have to think about the soft skills. Statistics that showed in 2016 now we have got the World Economic Forum for 2025 took place in January. So for 2016, they projected that some of the drivers change in industries and overall demographic and socio-economic factors. They saw urbanization was also getting there. Women economic empowerment was an issue. Young demographics are also emerging markets. Consumer ethics. Those are some of the things that the World Economic Forum was projecting from 2016. What about this? Going forward again, some of the technological factors as drivers of change and affecting the future of work. Internet is there. Processing power, that is the big data, new energy supplies, because energy is there. Energy is always cutting across, because unless we have got energy, we can't move. Internet of Things, of course, the fourth industrial revolution, going towards the fifth industrial revolution, and any others we are projected. Some of the significant barriers to change that were required in industry. The barriers, things like insufficient understanding of disrupting changes, resource constraints, as the list goes down, insufficient priority of top management, where top management are not prioritizing some of the key important issues of that particular institution. Future work strategies and industries in terms of the overall growth, investing in reskilling people, employees, probably their skills are rusted, so you need to upgrade their skills, support mobility and all that. So this is what was happening in terms of the survey that was done and how people responded. What about this year, January? Artificial intelligence is there, and information processing technologies is really one of the big. It is 86% of the responses that were there for most of the employees and the employers, that when they were asked, when survey was done, they were asked and they said, artificial intelligence is very important. Energy generation is so important. New materials that are coming in terms of composites, semiconductors, quantum and encryptions. Biotechnology and gene technologies are also making it. Space technologies is also featuring in our way. So these are some of the skills that. Now, as I conclude, and looking at collaboration. Collaborations are so important in our whatever we do. You must have a vision. You have to define clearly what it is that we are collaborating. That is goal number 17, United Nations, partnerships, collaborations, because I think it is well understood that you can't survive alone, that we have to collaborate. So you have to think about a number of things. Researchers, how researchers are collaborating. What are kind of the experts and skills that we need for us to collaborate? I am a chemist, you are a biology, you are a social scientist. Can we come together to solve a global or societal challenge? Things like that. And some of the benefits why we do collaborations. I think that is what we're trying to say. Again, another highlight, 1 minute, science communication is so important, because you do research, you publish, and you put those journals in your shelves. Then what? So that we have to really improve on our communication skills, science communication skills, so that we can be able to raise awareness of the science-related topics that are of interest. And I'm very happy I saw Dr. Twala is here listening to this presentation. Dr. Twala from the Academy of Sciences South Africa, SAF. There's one topic we are looking at, which is food security, and also the food poisoning coming from chemicals. So that is a topic that is of interest to the society. The role of researchers and academic research institutions, that needs to change, and we have to increase more in terms of community impact. What is the impact of your research? Because science communication has to demonstrate why scientists and how we scientists should really, convince our governments that we need funding for the projects that we are doing. Another topic which I'm not going to dwell on is that intellectual property and protection of research, and in terms of the IP, intellectual property rights. Very, very important, because you create something, you create a knowledge, but then you don't protect it by, first you have to, launch your intellectual property, whatever it is that you have come up with, whether it is a concept, whether it's a product, patent. So we have to worry about patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets. So the message here is that it is so important for us. When we think about innovation, we must also think about the intellectual property. Why that is important is because it is going to going to translate to commercial, and it is going to bring wealth in the long run. So it is important for you to, as you do your research, that these are things that we have. But we must also be aware of things like counterfeiting, counterfeiting and piracy. Your work, somebody takes it and takes it with them, and they make money from it, but you, the person, the creator, you're not getting anything. Some of the ideas in terms of you describing what it is that you need to do maybe in an abstract, you register in your university or IP office. Some of the research ideas, you have to think of what it is that you want to go and patent. You have to do market search. Then you think about the prototypes, and you think about many other things. I think I've covered that. And finally, I would want to say that it is always good to recognize excellence, and in terms of recognition schemes, giving awards, creating awards, a system of awards to our students, our early career researchers. University of Johannesburg, we do that. South Africa does that. Many other institutions, they do that, and that it has to continue. Because then it kind of motivates people and inspires people even to do more. And talking about that, I mean, we recognize the South Africa Women in Science Awards. What that the impact of that. Personally, I also benefited from that in 2016, and so therefore, I know the recognition awards really they go a long way in doing that. We also have other programs such as the L'Oreal UNESCO Young Women Awards. Again, we also have a program in South Africa that recognizes young talents. I have been lucky to also participate in the South Africa Science Technology Awards and also the L'Oreal UNESCO Awards. And these are some of the highlights of some of the work that I was doing in water and nanotechnology. And I would like to acknowledge, all the people who have attended this seminar, webinar, particularly hosted by University of Johannesburg Postgraduate School and the Research Capacity Development Unit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ngila. Can you just acknowledge if you can still hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Thank you, Prof. Sometimes we are experiencing network issues.
All right, okay.
Okay, thank you so much for a very insightful, conversation that you have had with us. I don't know, Prof, what would you prefer for maybe Prof Maburu to present, then questions are asked at the end so that after we hear both perspectives, or you'd want to take questions now?
No, unless there's a burning question.
Okay.
If somebody is a burning question, then they can ask, but otherwise we can wait until Prof also presents.
Okay, so let me just whilst the audience are deciding whether there's a question that is burning, let me enable all their mics, and it will be just now resting on the participants to make sure that your mic is muted, unless you are the one who is talking. So let me just go on the process of enabling the mics for all attendees. I'm just trying to navigate through.
Okay.
All right. I see the meeting roles. Okay, reject, announce. Okay, for some reason, I don't know why am I missing that part. Let me try again.
Oh, you're trying to check if there is a Q&A.
No, I wanted to allow their mics.
Oh, I see.
Participants,
okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Participation. Okay. Yeah. Allow mics for attendees. I've seen it.
All right.
Apply. Oh, what did I allow? I think I allowed the camera instead of mic. Let me go back again.
Yeah.
Okay. Settings. Meeting options. Participation.
Mm-hmm.
Let me turn off allow mics for attendees. So I've allowed mics for all the attendees. If there's a question that is burning, like Prof. Ngila said, you can ask it now. Otherwise, we'll reserve all the questions for
Absolutely.
the end after we had both perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I see a hand from E. Masika. Yes, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Professor Ngila. I'm listening from Kenyatta University, Kenya.
I
did get this from I follow you a lot, and quite very insightful engagement. Just
Thank you.
Just a follow-up to many collaboration, the things you do, UNJ, quite over the weekend.
Yes.
And these things seem to be really, really engaging, even the global scale. I'm just wondering, how do we get involved in part of this? While I was in the UK, I did a lot of STEM ambassadors.
Okay.
And so I came back. We've met in a number of forums. The last time I think we met in PSN Planning for Committee
Yes.
at Nairobi Club. And so
Okay.
how do we, how my question or maybe just inquiry from your part, how do we, the local team, partner with you so that our students can also be able to be part of this journey? It's amazing and wonderful journey. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Masika. And basically what I participate a lot with, I don't know whether you know the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO, which is basically the agency, the UNESCO agency in Kenya, has got a program where it selects a group of professionals who go to schools, different schools. But I think your question is, how do we engage? I think the best thing to do is just to send you my email, and then I can give you more details of how we can engage. And I'm just typing my email on the screen there. So then you can contact me, and then we can, and anybody else who is interested in Catherine Ngila, we can be able to engage.
Thank you, Prof. Really appreciated.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for answering the question. I think let's hand over to Prof Mavuru to lead us now into the second segment of this seminar. Then at the end, we engage in an open discussion where we can ask these questions, and then if there's any contribution that you would also want to make, then we can say it. Prof Mavuru, I hand over to you. Prof Mavuru, I don't know if your mic is muted. Let me unmute it for
sorry.
you. Okay, yeah, all right, thank you.
Right. I'm not so sure. Am I sharing the slides?
Yeah.
And is my video on? Because I can't see myself.
Yes, you are sharing the slides. I think they are already on presenter mode. The other participants can also confirm. I see some thumbs up from the participants. Thank you.
Yeah.
You can
yes,
proceed.
yes, it is on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Prof. Ngila, for the presentation. You know, when the research capacity development team asked me to present alongside you, I said to myself, what exactly do they want me to say after you've spoken? Because I thought, and indeed you covered everything, and you are actually operating at a higher level where it's about, the research that is making social impact. And I really appreciate that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my experience based on one of the aspects that you mentioned regarding the gender stereotypes. Okay, and so what happened is that when I did high school, I was actually I was doing A-level with Cambridge, and I was doing mathematics, chemistry, and biology. So one of these days, when we were doing practicals, because we do lab practicals every day, literally in the afternoon. So there was a boy, my classmate, and myself. We were supposed to collect equipment from the storeroom and bring it to the lab. And what happened is that the boy was carrying a tray full of beakers, small ones and large ones, which was a lot. And myself, I also had a tray full of test tubes. So you know how it is like with students. One of the boys, naughty boys, actually placed a broom in front of the storeroom. So we were actually interrupted from our walk, and then all the trays, they dropped down. Now, what happened thereafter is something that is what I'm going to share that is still actually disturbs me every other time. So the teacher, our A-level biology, no, this one, it was a chemistry teacher, our A-level chemistry teacher, he was so angry. Not angry with the boy who actually placed the broom that caused all this accident, or not even angry with the boy who broke all the beakers, the large beakers, the small beakers, and so on. But he was so angry with me. And just to echo his words, he says, "Hey, Lydia, why are you so reckless? What kind of a mother are you going to be? If it was a child, if it was your baby, were you going to drop the baby? It means the baby was going to actually be dead by now." So it's something that is really unfortunate, because sometimes it also happens. And I don't think the teacher really was aware of gender stereotypes, or was also aware of anything to do with genders. All he could see in a girl was one day she will fall pregnant and then she will be a mother. Therefore, she should be more careful than men, than boys. So I thought I could share this with you and the rest of the colleagues. So gender stereotypes are real. Hey, and I always share this experience with my students. So I will start my presentation on promoting STEM education in developing countries. And I want to thank the Research Capacity Development team for giving me this opportunity. So my share, what I'm going to discuss is mainly based on my experience as a STEM teacher, as a STEM learner. And okay, sorry, am I sharing? Or if I missed my presentation, is my presentation still visible?
I cannot see.
It has disappeared.
Okay, all right, sorry. I don't know what happened. Let me just share it once again.
Yeah, you can share it.
Honestly,
To the participants, please, if you see it, please indicate with a thumbs up if you do see her presentation. Thank you.
they can they see? Okay, let me just start again.
Prof, we still can't see it, Prof. I think she can. You can share again. I think that will be helpful.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, hopefully
Yes.
I'm sharing.
We can see it now.
Okay, so
All right,
what
thank
I'm okay, thank you. So what I was saying is I'm going to share this presentation on a promotion of STEM education in developing countries based on my experiences as a STEM learner, as a STEM student in university and STEM learner in high school, and currently as a STEM educator. And hopefully what I'm going to share will be in a position to also inform other STEM educators and STEM teachers who are mostly our postgraduate students, and to know exactly or to understand what a learner can actually feel. So my argument is that the promotion of STEM education in developing countries can only be promoted by contextualizing teaching, learning, and research in STEM subject to ensure relevance. This is how I view it. So when we look at this, I am going to share okay. My argument is, how can students possibly be expected to utilize the knowledge and skills they learn from STEM if it is divorced from their social cultural backgrounds? That's why I feel contextualizing is important. Now, the reason is, if students can relate what they learn in STEM with their experiences at home and in communities, then linkage with industry becomes easier. So relevance and utility value are realized. And in any case, industry should also be involved in STEM teaching, learning, and research. So I'll start with my context. My philosophy in STEM teaching and learning focuses mostly on the information or the experiences I had as a learner in science in high school, as I've already mentioned, a student in university, STEM teacher in high school, and STEM educator at university. Now, how I was taught STEM subject, because this is important. How I was taught definitely has an impact on how I teach and how I am going to be in a position to develop the teachers, the STEM teachers that I work with. So during that time, STEM bore no relationship to my everyday experiences. Whatever I was doing at home, in society, or even when I visit my parents' workplaces, there was nothing really that had any relationship to what was happening in the STEM classrooms. Now, you'd find that this discord left me with an elitist view of STEM subjects where I thought, oh, it is only a few that are supposed to be doing STEM subjects. It's not meant for me. And as you can see right at the end there, I'm saying I felt I did not belong in the STEM classroom. It was so difficult for me to learn STEM subjects in English, a language that is different from my own. And when we talk of a STEM subject, particularly, for instance, science or the chemistry, the physics or the mathematics or the biology, you find that the language is so specialized. Other than experiencing problems with English, science is a language on its own. So it was very difficult for me to even understand some of the terminologies, the expressions that are abstract in there, because science is a language on its own, which is specialized. Let alone using equipment not familiar to me. The equipment was alien to me. Just to mention the few apparatus, the test tube itself, the beaker, the measuring cylinders, the vernier calipers. Think of the microscopes. I didn't know anything about them because at home we only see cups, plates, pots, and here I'm in the classroom and I'm seeing new apparatus that I'm supposed to use on daily basis. And you'd find that at that time, science as STEM subjects were actually portrayed as very remote, difficult, and only the clever students could succeed. So you'd find that at the end of the day, those students that were succeeding in STEM subjects, they were viewed as leaders of the school. They even ended up being feeling so much greater than the other students. And to a certain extent, yes, because I was a STEM learner and a STEM student, I also felt the same. But in a way, I also still felt I did not belong to the classroom because I would not understand some of the things. And in those classrooms, diversity was very huge. It was quite overwhelming in terms of language, the religion, the cultural practices, experience, and socioeconomic backgrounds of my peers. So in a way, I thought, well, I did not belong to the STEM classroom. And I'm sure even right now, we could also have some students that still feel the same. And let alone, I was taught by expatriate teachers for both mathematics, chemistry, and biology, and from German, from Canada, and the accent and pronunciation was so difficult for me to even discern. Again, it shows that as STEM teachers and STEM educators, the manner in which we pronounce, we know the terms may be, some of the things that are not familiar to us, but somehow we need to try our best to make sure that we pronounce them in a way that learners can actually understand. And at A level, as I've mentioned, I was also taught by a maths teacher who had studied aviation. And all he knew was the mathematical concepts. He was so sharp, it was really good, but could not transform those concepts to students to comprehend. So you find that students are actually different. Some understand once a teacher introduces a concept, everyone gets it. They understand it. But the rest of us would struggle, would want someone who would use examples familiar to us, someone who would actually be in a position to use certain teaching strategies to make sure that we really comprehend the concepts. So you would find that already most of the students were actually left behind. And there was no catering for students' abilities or learning styles. And, during that time, and I understand even in some faculties, especially in engineering, science, and so on, if students fail, it shows the rigor of the subject. And the educator, the lecturer, or the teacher, it shows their prowess in their discipline, which is very, very unfortunate, because all we should do as STEM teachers, STEM educators, is when my students are understanding, when my students are passing, then it means I'm doing a good job. So these challenges were not addressed by the teacher nor the lecturers, or neither the textbooks as well. So you can see my experience was really bad as a STEM learner and STEM student in university. Now, I just want to briefly look at what does literature say about all this experience that I mentioned. In the middle of the 20th century, the 1960s and 1970s, STEM and science was regarded as factual, universal, and value-free. So probably that's where the teachers that were teaching me actually were leaning on to say, well, it's about facts, it's about universality, it's about, I don't need to bring in examples that are familiar to learners, because, this is value-free, which is very, very unfortunate. And then some 10 years ago, an African scholar also researched and found and bemoaned that in most African countries, STEM, particular science, is still regarded as universal, which is not true. In such a notion, we know it disregards the nature of science, because we know science, it also embraces, it is embedded with social, cultural, and creative, and, all those characteristics, they are in there. So this is more for the tenets which contain that scientific knowledge is inferential, because if you are inferring, obviously the lens that you are using is based on your context, on the experiences that you had. So same applies, it is also socially and culturally embedded. So just to mention that the nature of science here refers to one's perceptions of how scientific knowledge is developed. So if teachers think this is universal, therefore or it's factual or value-free, they don't recognize the need to even bring in learners or students' backgrounds, or students' prior knowledge, or students' cultural experiences and practices. So, and then later in the 20th century, science has been conceptualized as specifically for the Western culture. And unfortunately, again, such a conceptualization meant that learners from other backgrounds that are not Western, they perceived themselves as outsiders, and they did not feel included in these subjects. And again, it's still continuing, it's still carrying on. So yet science and other STEM subjects are important as drivers in economic growth in most nations. So if students don't understand, and if they feel they are not part of the STEM classroom, or STEM lecture, or STEM research, then what are we doing? We are not doing what we are supposed to do. Surprisingly, this situation persists to this day in most African and other developing countries' STEM classroom contexts. And because there's very little documentation or dissemination of findings about classroom practices that integrate learners' cultural backgrounds, learners' experiences, learners' belief systems, and so on in STEM classroom. Now, my question is, who should do it? Definitely, it should be the STEM teachers, the STEM lecturers, community members, because how do we get to be in a position to embrace some of the science, some of the STEM knowledges that are practices within the communities, within societies, and even some of the parents or community members that are working in the industry? So it is important that everyone is supposed to be involved in STEM education. So now coming back to the issue of being a STEM teacher, a researcher, or a scholar, we need to reflect on our teaching, research, and supervision practices. And when reflecting, we need to ask ourselves, you need to ask yourself, I need to ask myself as a STEM educator or researcher or scholar. For instance, ask yourself, who am I as a researcher or a scholar? Because if you don't know who you are not going to be in a position to try your best to know your students, to know the people that are going to listen to the paper that you are going to present, or to listen, to even think of the other academics who are in a different context, who are going to be recipients or who are going to receive your research output. And then what is identity as a scholar? Which context, what is the nature of your context? It is important so that, because what you may present and when you teach, sometimes it might be completely different from what the other people are expecting or are actually getting in their own fields, because they are working in a different situation altogether. And what informs my thoughts and practices, and the most important thing is, how can I teach STEM subjects to ensure socioeconomic transformation? Because the whole point is, we don't just teach STEM education for the sake of it. Like what Prof. Angela was saying, she was showing you all the wonderful research that she's embarking on in order to address all the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's not about just teaching STEM. It's about problem solving. It's about equipping the students. It's about equipping the communities. It's about addressing the needs of the society and the industry at large. So where am I going with all this? Why do I have such a kind of philosophy or a kind of way of teaching that I conceptualize? So I have, that is how I indicate, I understand the interrelationship between STEM learning and my teaching. I have a belief. Remember, I said as a STEM educator, you need, or STEM student or STEM researcher, you need to understand your own beliefs so that you can be open to others' beliefs as well. So my belief is every student is more than capable to perform optimally in STEM subjects, provided they are accorded the opportunity to reach their full potential. And who does that? It's supposed to be us. And then my desire as an educator, STEM educator, is to be sensitive and cognizant of diversity in the lecture rooms, in the classrooms, in whatever you do. And my view of the students is that all students are capable. They can achieve. You shouldn't look at students as though with that deficit, sorry, not deficit, but with a deficit aspect, to say, well, this student comes from this background, therefore they are not likely to achieve this. If you give them the necessary learning environment, and you use the right teaching uh, strategies that speak to their needs, they are likely to be able to achieve. So my role as a STEM educator is a critical friend who scaffolds learning, not who imposes or who shuts what the learners or the students bring to the lecture room. I want to just quickly discuss how I make STEM relatable to students' lives. My teaching practices are informed by Henry Gerox. I'm sure some people, they already know this theory. It's a theory of pedagogy, which it views classrooms or lecture rooms as not only just spaces for just teaching, or where students are supposed to learn the content which is not relatable to them. It is actually a space where students are supposed to build their own identity. So that's why at the end of the day, if some of the STEM students that we produce from the lecture rooms, or STEM laboratories, or from the STEM classrooms, they are not worried about society. Why? Because they never build their identities. And some of them don't even want to help their communities that they come from. So I seek to promote issues of social justice, freedom, and equality in STEM teaching. I know some would say, why are we talking social justice? We are only talking of STEM subjects. But the issue is, why do students learn STEM subjects? Why do they learn science, for instance? It's because they want to address certain issues. You heard what Professor Nkila was saying about gender. It's actually something that is also a social justice issue that needs to be addressed. She spoke about the poverty, which is also one of the SDGs, inclusivity, and for instance, all those issues, they are important. And for them to be promoted in the classroom, then it starts with STEM teaching. And it depends on how exactly you create your learning environment in your lecture room or in your STEM classroom. And at the end of the day, STEM students should be critical, analytical, and learning should be aimed at problem solving. And this is exactly what happens at workplaces. So the environment that we create in the classroom should not be so much divorced from the workplace. If we are allowed to speak, to air our sentiments, or to argue, or to bring our own ideas at workplaces, so surely in the classroom, we should also allow our students to do the same. They must be free, they must be equipped with those skills from the very beginning. So teaching STEM subject, I actually foster reformed pedagogy in terms of embracing fourth industrial revolution, utilizing technological tools, not only for the sake of it, but to 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 make sure that we make knowledge accessible to the students, and that the students are capable of being in the 20 to be, especially for the teachers that we develop, so that they can be able to meet the requirements of the 21st century learners and those beyond. And we must always, empower STEM students for constantly changing world. And then I remember the other time in my classroom, one of the students says, when I remember I developed STEM teachers, one of the students asked, but you always talk of inclusivity, you talk of recognizing learners' culture, social cultural backgrounds, but there you are talking of, focusing on constantly changing world. How does that come in? Now, the issue is, when we look at social cultural background of learners, it doesn't necessarily mean that if we look at that, we are not looking at how the world is changing. Obviously, the changing world also encompasses some of the values, some of the belief systems. They become modified as students meet with other students from different contexts. And in addition, because of that, obviously the changing world in terms of industry, in terms of the teaching methods, in terms of the developments in STEM, we have to embrace them. So our focus is on developing and transforming graduates for the world of work and, of course, for global citizenship. Of importance is actually the pedagogy of caring. I know, like I indicated at the beginning, some teachers, STEM teachers, particularly, especially the physics, they had sciences, physics, chemistry, and mathematics. They always think that probably if students are failing, or if everyone is confused in the lecture room or in the classroom, then it shows that the discipline is really important. That's not the right thing to do, because we are talking of a pedagogy of caring. The reason why you are in front of them, or whilst you are amongst those students or those learners, is because you want them to succeed. So you have to care about their feelings. You have to care about whether they've understood what you are teaching, whether they are actually engaged in the teaching itself. So sharing, emulating, and appreciating the students' value systems is actually key. So as you teach, as a STEM teacher or as a STEM educator or scholar or supervisor, you need to ask yourself, why am I teaching this content? Why am I researching this area of STEM? Because it's not all about just doing it. What value is the content adding to the students' careers as STEM and life in general? So these questions that I've posed, they are really important because as educators also, reflection is part of us. Same applies to the researchers. Reflection is part of us because you don't just do the lab work and then you come up with the results and you infer what it means, but you need to reflect. How does this impact on the already existing information? So same applies to teaching. How do diverse groups of students view the issues they experience in the concepts that I'm teaching? And what technological tools are actually important at this present moment for my students to understand? And then, of course, are the students aware of the same career opportunities that are at their disposal? Because most of them, they don't know. And the teacher feels, I am only teaching, this is up to the student, or it's up to the people that are dealing with career guidance. And yet, you know that as a STEM educator or STEM teacher, the learners and the students, they look up to you. So it is important to guide them as you teach every topic, you explore some of the careers opportunities that exist. I also want to go back to the issue of gender disparities that Prof. Ngila mentioned. And as you saw that it's still there, it's still reflected even in career, as you was even mentioning that we have so many at lower levels, but as we go higher, you'd find that women actually are limited. But now the issue is, it's not just women only, it could also be other genders. As you know that we are actually living in a changing society, and we don't have to look at gender as distinctive to say male and female. We should look at it as a continuum as well, because there could be some other learners that are not male, that don't subscribe to being male or female, that are somewhere like the LGBTQ plus. We also need to take note of them. And of course, I am not saying I'm a specialist when it comes to that, but I am trying, and I also engage with those communities so that at least I get to understand how exactly do they feel. What exactly do they want in the STEM classroom? How do they want to be treated? So yes, it's not about males and females only. Again, STEM classroom could be a replication or a reflection of the societal beliefs and practices. So as a STEM educator, how are you managing your classrooms? How are you able to make sure that you portray the right attitudes that you want the students to develop? For instance, I always share with my students. In previously, I think 2 or 3 years ago, there was a student teacher. I can't remember whether it was a STEM teacher or something, but what I know is was a student teacher during will, not from our university, of course, from other universities, from another university. The career actually ended. Why? Because they could not address gender issues in the classroom. So this is important. We should take note of how the societal manifests, societal values or beliefs manifest in the classroom or in the lecture room. And as a STEM teacher, you have no excuse to say you don't know. You have to equip yourself with that. So recognizing gender stereotypes in STEM classrooms, textbooks, and assessments, the teaching methods as well, is very key. I just want to give you an example of this cartoon that I always share with my students. Like in this community, there was a problem of water shortage. And as you can see, men are there. They are already seated. They are discussing. They are busy discussing water, so-called water. And yet, who is solving the problem there? The women are already trying to solve problems. by fetching water from very far away. So my issue is this same scenario could be happening in STEM classrooms, where the teacher can end up saying certain groups of learners are the ones that do, very menial work, whilst those, when it comes to presentations, when it comes to coming up with, designs and so on, it should only be this particular group of learners or students. So we have to be very, very careful to make sure that we don't replicate gender disparities that happen in industry, workplaces, and in society. We don't want them to permeate into the STEM classrooms or STEM lecture rooms. In summary, this is how I envision promotion of STEM education in developing countries. We have right in the middle integrating learners or students' social cultural backgrounds in STEM teaching and learning. In this particular case, I just said science, but it could be any other STEM subject. Role of context, language issues, taking note of the scientific language, the issues of code switching as well, and learners, teachers' home languages, which needs to be taken care of, gender responsive pedagogies, gender responsive teaching and learning methods, strategies, and taking note of gender stereotypes. And sometimes, as teachers or as educators, we are not so much aware of this, or we think we don't have time to do that. But you can only be in a position to take note of gender stereotypes and address them and recognize them in your lecture room, so that at least you guide your students if you really plan your teaching. And we also talk of social scientific issues, learners' cultural experiences, learners' cultural practices, learners and also teachers' beliefs as well. So role of context, contextualizing STEM teaching and learning is very, very important. Some, just to share with you some of the publications that I've done in a bid to find empirical evidence of recognizing learners' social cultural backgrounds in the classroom. For example, teaching biology whilst integrating teachers and learners' cultural beliefs. Biology teachers' pedagogical content knowledge when addressing social scientific issues in a particular topic, for example, evolution. Science teachers' creation of a constructivist learning environment. Now, this kind of research helps me to be in a position to equip the students. And of course, harnessing project-based learning. And it all continues language affordances, teachers' views on the use of learners' social cultural backgrounds, and so on. Okay, I am not going to talk about how STEM drives innovation and economic growth, because we've seen that in the presentation that has been done by Prof. Ngela, sorry. She did it, she included everything, the social impact itself, and so on. So I think I'll skip that. All I just want to talk about now is integrating industry knowledge into STEM education, where especially for those that are preparing or that are developing STEM teachers like myself. So we have to prepare or develop skilled STEM teachers, promote an understanding of industry needs and trends, because it's not just about teaching. We have to tailor make or modify our curricula so that at least it addresses the needs of the industry, the society, and so on. And of course, building partnership with industries. And I've seen so many of I know in education, sometimes it's quite difficult, but in some other departments, for instance, right now, I've just built in some partnership with some of my colleagues in engineering, faculty of engineering, faculty of health, and so on. You can see that the partnerships that they build with industry is very, very important. So we can also emulate this even when teaching in the STEM classrooms. For instance, there are very knowledgeable people in society. They are engineers. They are community health practitioners. And yet you are teaching concepts that are related to those people. Why not bring them? And why not taking your students to also visit the workplaces and so on? And of course, engaging in collaborative research projects, which Prof. Ngila is indicated that it is the one that can actually bring, that can cause social impact. I know all this that we have spoken about, there are challenges. For example, it's very hard to keep up with rapidly changing industry needs and limited resources and funding. It has already been mentioned. And of course, ensuring equitable access to STEM education for all students. I just brought in just a few solutions. There is advocacy for policy support and funding, which Prof. Nkela is already mentioning, and leveraging community resources and partnerships, and implementing inclusive teaching practices that I've mentioned, and using real life examples and success stories so that at least you get to bring the points or the content, the concepts across as you are explaining them. And of course, the collaboration, we have already mentioned that, and engaging in innovative teaching approaches. Thank you so much. My appreciation goes to the research capacity development team and all of you for even listening to my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Mavuro. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this very insightful presentation. I had prepared some questions that I wanted to ask. But the way that it seems, I think everything that I wanted to ask has already been answered. It is a norm for the research capacity development unit representative to be the ones who open the question and answer segment by asking questions or making a sort of a contribution to the conversation that we had. So in this case, I'll try to just convert the questions that I had to sort of comments. I think you've already touched on, because I wanted to ask on some key strategies that developing countries can adopt to try to expand inclusive and locally relevant STEM education, especially for marginalized communities and girls. Remember, the girls of today are the women of tomorrow. And the other question that I had was on the partnerships among governments, academia, and the industry. How that can be leveraged to improve STEM infrastructure, teacher capacity, and long-term workforce retention. So I think during the course of the presentation, all those were, Prof. Ngila referred to, some of aspects that touched on this, that answered these questions. And you just now, you've already been talking about how the industry engagement, building sort of networks and relations with the industry and emulating what the Faculty of Engineering is doing, among others, stressing the importance of that in STEM education. So I would like to just thank you for the wonderful presentation. I think this has been touched from both perspectives. And let me allow me to open the floor for I call it a discussion, or an open discussion segment instead of question and answer. So this is where we can discuss, we can share experiences. We can also, if there's any contribution that you want to make to the conversation, that we have had with the presenters, then this is the time when you can do so. So I've allowed the mics of all the participants. You can raise your virtual hand, then you ask your question, or alternatively, you can just type it in the chat box, then I bring it to the attention of the facilitators. Thank you. The question, the open discussion segment is open. Participants, are we together? Yes, I see a hand from Dr. Melus. Dr. Melus, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the organizers of this session for such an informative session. Just listening for the past almost 2 hours now. It's been really insightful, and thanks to our lead presenters on this. Look, it's not necessarily a question, but something that I would just like to underscore that came out from the two presentations from Prof. Ngila as well as Prof. Maburu, where there was consensus, is developing nations have to highly prioritize societal needs, within the STEM curriculum and the research that we obviously undertake in that regard. And I think from the funding point of view and the impact point of view and the societal service point of view, universities, academics themselves can benefit by highly aligning their research towards, the development endeavors of their nations. The continent of Africa largely battles with energy sustainability, and it is when we rely on our researchers and universities, to prioritize such that government or funders' resources can be aligned with those, research projects. So that is something that they mentioned, and I think it was Prof. Maburu who had the cartoon where men were sitting discussing the issue of water whilst the women on the other side were actually solving the problem. One of the key hindrances in advancing, our impact in STEM is our societal, I will call it blind spots, either at home or as society at large, because what you saw there is that the family was divided in that cartoon, that the mothers, from the same, these are people from the same family. The mother is actually collecting the water, solving the problem, but the father is sitting with other men discussing this issue. So it means the problem actually, other than just the water itself, is actually at home. I just wanted to make those, to emphasize those points because they came through from the two presentations. And really, we thank you, Prof. Ngila and Prof. Maburu, for the service that you delivered today and to the organizers and the university. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. The participants, the mics are open. If you have a question, you can unmute and ask your question. Alternatively, you can just type in the chat box.
I think 2 hours is not a joke for them. They've been listening for 2 hours, and I think it was a long time.
True.
Yeah.
No, I think maybe, yeah, because of that, we have engaged. This has been a very long session, but I was foreseeing that because with two presenters, there's no, usually we don't want to cut you short. We want the audience the participants to benefit as much as possible. And I think, thank you so much for being with us until this far. So I think since there's no questions from the audience, with your permission, Profs, I can now move on to the closing, phase of this seminar.
Sure.
All right, thank you so much. So I think I'm going to post again the feedback survey for the participants, just to bring it to the attention of the participants that we kindly ask you to fill in this evaluation form for feedback purposes to us that we use for future preparations, as well as for feedback to our facilitators for today. I also want to bring you to the attention that we launched the Research Capacity Development Management System. Go on the ULink under services, the services tab, you will find the RCDMS. Then you are able to register on the RCDMS. Alternatively, you can go on the postgraduate school website. Then under the research capacity and development tab, then you can find RCDMS and register on the system, because that is the one that we'll be using going forth, that we are migrating to, so that you can be able to continue access our events and services. If you have any inquiries, you can contact us on rcdinquiries@uj.ac.za. So I thank you for your participation. And I also want to thank once again Prof. Ngila and Prof. Mavuru for the valuable insights that they have shared with us today, and for taking their valuable time to be with us and facilitate the seminar for today. So I think with that, there's no questions in the chat box. I just want to now move on to end the session with the permission of your profs. Then, if there's any concluding remarks that you want to make, you can make now before I stop the recording, and then wishing everyone a great day further.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Lydia.
Yes,
Thank you,
I just
Lydia.
want to express my gratitude to you, Prof. Ngila, for the insightful presentation. And I'm sure I'm also going to reach out to you, because already there are certain things that I need from you so much. And I want to be part of that, global collaboration that you are actually involved in. And I want to also thank my colleagues from the Department of Mathematics, Science and Technology Education, who, beside who decided to leave their, so many activities that they are involved in, and they to come and, just listen to us. And I really do appreciate so much. And of course, all the postgraduate students that are in, and the colleagues from all over, all the academics from all over the world, whoever is in here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Same here, Lydia. And hopefully, Lydia, I'll be seeing you next year in January.
Definitely.
For your education international conference here.
Definitely. I'm so grateful that the local organizing committee managed to just get you as as a plenary speaker. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you
so
to
keep
everybody.
Keep strong. We want you intact in January 2026.
All right. Okay. No, thank you. Thank you very much, RCD. Thank you for everything and inviting us, and also for those who have attended. Thank you, Dr. Twala, for creating time to attend from ASAP. Thank you. And all the delegates here.
Thank you so much, Prof. I must also acknowledge the presence of, I see quite a number of academic staff, some professors, doctors, lecturers. I've been checking the profiles of some of them. We are really happy, to also have you, taking your time to join us for this seminar. And I think with that, we have had a very insightful session. I just want to wish everyone a great day further, and thanking you for continuing to show your support for the Research Capacity Development Unit. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Sorry, Doc, did you share the